Okay, so you just did elimination and all you had to do was add the equations together. But sometimes in your system, you don't have numbers that are almost the same number, that are the same number, but one's positive and one's negative. So how do I know when that's going to happen? Well, if I look at this example and I try to add these numbers together, okay? Now we know if it's just like negative x, we know that means it's a negative 1. Okay, so if I add negative 1 plus 5, I would type that in and I would get 4x. And then we know this is a negative 1 and this is a negative 1. If I did negative 1 plus negative 1, that's going to be negative 2. Why? Oh my, nothing adds up to 0. Okay, that's how I know, oh, well, I can't just add them together because nothing added up to 0. So what do I do if nothing adds up to 0? Well, that's where this step comes into play. We need to multiply one or both of the equations so that the numbers will become the same numbers, okay? So you need to decide, am I supposed to multiply the first equation or the second equation? How can I tell? Well, first of all, you have to make smaller numbers into bigger numbers because we are multiplying. So I'm going to put all the coefficients in here. I got a 1 and a 1 and a 1. So you need to decide, can I turn a negative 1 into a 5 by multiplying? Or these ones are already the same number, but one's a negative and one's a positive. So we're going to try to change, we're going to focus on our y's. We want to change those so that one of them is positive and one of them is negative because they're already the same number. It's just the signs aren't right. So how do I do that? Well, if all you need to do is change the sign, we're going to write a little note at the top to change the sign. Okay? If all I need to do is change the sign, then you're going to multiply by a negative number. Okay, now in this case, since I don't want to change the number, I'm going to be multiplying by a 1, and not just a 1 because I do want to change the sign, so I'm going to multiply by negative 1. So let me erase that red thing. Now in this case, it does not matter which one you choose to multiply. Since these are both the same number, I'm going to pick the first equation, and I'm going to multiply by negative 1. Now, when I do that, I can't just multiply the y. I got to multiply all the numbers by negative 1. So times negative 1, times negative 1, times negative 1. So you would type these in, negative 1 times negative 1. Well, now that's a positive 1. It had an x. I put an x. For my y numbers, I'm going to multiply those. Negative 1 times negative 1 is a positive 1. Had a y, put a y. Equal sign, put the equal sign. The last one, negative 1 times negative 10, I would type that in, and I would get positive 10. Good for me. The other equation, I don't need to change, so I'm just going to copy it over there underneath and not change anything about it. Okay. Now, when I add them together, if I add these equations now, either the x or the y is going to add up to 0. So let's try. 1 plus 5, that's 6x. 1 plus negative 1 is 0. Oh my goodness. That's good. If you multiply and get new equations, and then you add them up, and you still don't get a 0, that means you multiplied by the wrong number. You got to go back and try something else. But I got a 0, so that's good. Something needs to add up to 0. Continue adding. 10 plus 2 is 12. And so we're going to finish solving this. Now, the 0y, we know we can cross that out. And the step to solve is we divide by 6 to solve for x. And I get x equals 12 divided by 6 is 2. So now that I have a number for x, I'm going to plug it in. Now, am I going to plug it into one of the ones that I wrote? No, I'm going to plug it into one of the ones that was already typed that they gave me in the question. So I'm going to plug it in where the x is, and I usually plug it into the first equation. We said that was kind of our little rule, so I'm going to plug it in there. So I have negative 1 on the outside, parentheses, now I'm plugging in a 2, minus 1y equals negative 10. Now I'm solving this equation. Oh, I still do the same thing. So negative 1 times 2 is negative 2. Drop down your other stuff. These steps are the same as you were just doing before. Oh, now I got to move the positive 2 to the other side, so I'm going to plus 2. Plus 2. That cancels out. I have negative 1y equals negative 10 plus 2. We type that in the calculator, and we get negative 8. And then last step, divide by negative 1, and I get y equals, type that in, positive 8. And we know, oh, I got to write it in parentheses. And the x number goes first, y number goes second. My x number was 2, so I'm going to put 2 and then 8. And this is my answer. So the only new thing is you have to multiply one of your equations to turn it into, so that something adds up to 0. Let's do one more example. So in this example, number 2, I'm going through and I'm double checking, is anything going to add up to 0? No. If I actually add it together without changing anything, negative 2 plus negative 1 is negative 3x. 9 plus negative 5 is 4y. Oh no, neither thing added up to 0. So that means I got to multiply one of my equations. So I need to figure out, I'm going to make this a negative 1. Can I change, is it easier to multiply negative 1 and turn it into a 2, or a 5 and turn it into a 9? Well, I don't know of anything that you do 5 times a number that will give you 9, but 1 times something will give you 2. So here we go. We're going to erase our little arrows. I know if I want to make that number, 1 times anything gives me that number again. So I'm going to multiply to get the number I need, a 2. Now, are they the same sign right now, or are they different signs? Well, right now they're the same sign. So I need to do times negative 2 because I need to change it so that one of them is a positive and one is a negative. So I do times 2 to change this to a 2, and I times a negative to change this to positive. So here we go. Now we're distributing that negative 2. So everything in there times negative 2. Let's see what this turns into. Negative 2 times negative 1 is positive 2x. Negative 2 times negative 5, positive 10y. Negative 2 times negative 24 is positive 48. The other equation we don't need to change. We're just going to write it over there. 2x plus 9y equals 9. And now we're adding our equations together. So hopefully something adds up to 0. So negative 2 plus 2, we type that in the calculator. We get 0. Yay. That means it worked. 9 plus 10 is 19y. 9 plus 48 is 57. The 0x, I can cross that out. Yay. And now I'm solving 19y equals 57. I divide by 19. Divide by 19. 19 cancels out. I get y equals, I type 57 divided by 19. I get 3. Now I'm taking that 3. I'm going to plug it in. For a y, I'm plugging it into one of my original equations. I always just do the first example. So I'm plugging it in for y. So I'm rewriting that equation down here. Negative 2x plus 9. Parentheses 3, I'm plugging in my answer, what I got over there. Equals 9. Okay, and then I'm solving this for x. So I know I'm going to do my multiply 9 times 3 first, which I type it in and get 27. I drop down my other numbers. Minusing 27 to the other side, I need to get x alone. Drop down my negative 2x. 9 minus 27, we type that in the calculator, we get negative 18. Last step, divide by negative 2. And I get x equals positive 9. Negative 18 divided by negative 2 is positive. Last step, I got to write my answer in parentheses. X goes first, y goes second. So what was my x number? I have x equals 9, so 9 goes first, and then 3. And that's my answer. So now you're going to go to the formative and you're going to start on number 13, because those are the questions where you have to start multiplying. If you have any questions, make sure you're sending a message in the chat.